Okay, hi everyone. Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. It may not sound like it to you, but my allergies are absolutely killing me right now. So please bear with me while I try to fucking survive through this episode of our weekly track roundup, where I go over what I felt were the best and the worst tracks of the week. Before we get into that, a few things to mention. I am going on tour in June, pretty much East Coast dates. Sorry to everybody else. We will hit you on another tour. We just added 2 more dates to the tour. Shout out to Cool Skull who did this lovely poster art. So we have our usual dates, the New Jersey date, the New York, the other New Jersey date, the Virginia dates, North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and then we're also hitting South Carolina and Pennsylvania too. Link to our page, theneedledrop.com/tour, where you can find all of the relevant information and ticketing links to the tour. We have general admission tickets as well as VIP tickets. The VIP tickets come with like an extra meet and greet type thing. You know, we'll hang out, take pictures, because a lot of these venues, a lot of these dates have hard outs. So as soon as the show is over, I can hang around for a little bit afterwards, but not long enough to sort of meet everybody and everything. So there's hard outs at a lot of these venues. The VIP lets people sort of get the more intimate experience. And also, if you pick up those VIP tickets day of show, I have an extra piece of content, exclusive, secret content that will be remaining sort of exclusive, that you guys should find very interesting. And as far as like what happens at these things, it's a mix of music and memes and lecture and Cal. It's a good fun time. Also, of course, down there we have our Amazon associate link and our Turntable Lab associate link. Pick up a nice colorful piece of vinyl or a new turntable or some speakers. If you're trying to get into the whole record collecting thing, we get kickback from that Turntable Lab link. And let's get into a little shout out over here for the band All India Radio. They are a long-standing kind of down-tempo and post-rock band that has a pretty immaculate instrumental over here titled Vega, which is now on theneedledrop.com. Austin did a little write-up for it, and we premiered it on the website. So we did a nice little song premiere for their new record coming out very soon. So peep that, because it's a pretty immaculate, very pristine instrumental. And apparently this cover art was originally commissioned for Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. I actually like it a bit more than the Dark Side of the Moon cover art. I mean, I guess you can't beat the Prism. It's so iconic, but I find this to be so much more stimulating. It's really, really beautiful album cover art. All right, let's get into what I felt were the worst tracks of the week. Worst tracks of the week. We've had quite a few. This is a really busy week. A lot of songs came out. A lot of music came out. I actually had to like not even talk about every single piece of music that I think in other weeks I would have otherwise like said something about, or else like this video is going to be like 40 minutes long because there's so many freaking tracks that dropped. Let's start with this new song from Lil Tracy and Lil Vert, this Like a Farmer remix. It's kind of like a funny piece of novelty trap about being a redneck. Just kind of seems like a ridiculous joke song. In which I think the comedy kind of wears thin after like a single listen. And I feel like Lil Vert didn't even play into the obvious theme of the track all that well. Some of the auto-tune melodies on the cut are kind of catchy, and some of the jokes do land, but overall it just felt like kind of really trashy and tasteless, and I don't know, just desperate for attention, honestly. Just sort of seemed like maybe a little too eager to piss off the exact demographic of people who they're trying to make fun of in the song. Obviously, you know, Southerners or rednecks or whatever. Yeah, not caring for it too much. Just sounded kind of trashy. IMO. Moving on from there, Big Shaq, Man Don't Dance. The very unfunny follow-up to his Skip It Up, Pip Pip viral hit last year. Yeah, you know, I mean, listen, that fucking meme, that was magic. magic, man. And unfortunately, you just can't really recreate it. I mean, maybe if there's a music video attached to this thing, it'll make more sense, and the jokes and the humor of it will land a bit harder. But just as a song, just on its own, even though he does, do those funny little onomatopoeia sounds here and there, and tries to kind of spice the track up a little bit. Yeah, I just feel like the humor on this track is super weak. Oh God, this new sangria wine track from Pharrell and Camila Cabello. Honestly, Cabello, her recent music I just found to be kind of bland, just like your usual top 40 pop stuff with like a slight, like super vague kind of Latin twist to it. But I wouldn't even say she's the worst thing about this track. I mean, again, her vocals are kind of generic, but I actually find Pharrell's hook on here to be the most obnoxious thing about the whole thing. Like his inflections and his whole, I don't know, I guess this is what he feels like an impression of I guess Latin music fused with pop, fused with hip hop is. It just sounds really goofy, and I don't know. It just sounds really I guess like a bastardization of a lot of the musical influences that went into this thing. So yeah, it's another pretty trashy cut. It's not a novelty song, but it sort of sounds like one. As does this new J-Rock track. God, this was awful. What the hell happened here? Like, I saw the cover, I'm seeing the trophies. I was like, it's called Win. What the hell? This has got to be great. This has got to be a banger. This has got to be amazing. And certainly J-Rock came hard with the inflection, with the delivery, and with the instrumental. But God, the lyrics are trash. Like, what? I just don't know what to say about this. It's just win, 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 win. Like, it's so tedious and it's so ridiculous. And he sounds so cartoony on the track. It sounds like a joke song. Like, and I get that, sort of bringing things in a more minimal and a more repetitive direction is the trend right now, and on top of it, it's not like you have to sort of sacrifice quality at the altar of simplicity, because Donald Glover proved that you don't necessarily have to do that with This Is America. And I've enjoyed quite a few artists who kind of, strip their tracks down to their most simplest and most repetitive elements before. But this just sounded kooky. This just sounded goofy. I think it's partially the repetition, which was really annoying about the song. But I think it's mostly just kind of the tone and the delivery of it. It just sounded like an SNL skit. It sounded like a joke song. And I don't know what else to say about it outside of that. It just sounded like a bit of unintended comedy, I guess, and I'll leave it at that. And Cal Chuchesta has a new freestyle out, which is absolute trash. He made a bunch of like playing card references throughout the song. Beat sounds like it was made on a fucking like 1980s Macintosh computer. It's super like lo-fi and kind of like a little distorted on the voice, and I don't know, it just sort of sounds like trash, just sounds like garbage. So screw Cal Chuchesta. He's a terrible human being and absolute trash, and not talented and stupid and ugly too. If you've ever looked at his face, you know what it looks like to stare into the face of someone who's really been beaten down with the ugly stick. All right, let's move on to the tracks that I thought were meh. Wasn't crazy about them, but they're not terrible. Certainly worth your attention, worth your awareness. First, Uffie has her first new track, her first new single in a while, titled Drugs. Kind of a plinky, glamorous, somewhat dreamy little ballad that doesn't really go all that hard. There's not really an aggressive point on it. There's something about the production that sounds like really shimmery and futuristic, kind of like a freaking PC music production or something like that. I like her vocals on the track. Again, I thought there would be a point where it just kind of picks up and just goes more aggressive, though. I mean, typically that's like what her older stuff used to sound like. It used to be a little bit more bombastic, but she's really kind of eased up on this track, and it's not a bad kind of low key ballad. Even if the song topic itself is nothing new. Moving on from there, Ty Segall and White Fence have a new collaborative project coming out titled Joy, which I'm pretty excited about because his last collaborative record with White Fence is easily one of my favorite Ty projects. Although to me, this new single over here titled Good Boy just kind of felt like some generic, heavily edited psych pop. Didn't to me read as essential or as lo-fi or as out there as some of their older collaborative material. Again, if you're like heavy into Revolver era Beatles and stuff, you'll probably dig pretty heavily on what the duo is doing here. Moving on from there, Neko Case came out with a new track over here titled Curse of the I-5 Corridor. And it's a pretty heavy, overwrought, very lengthy ballad, not as direct or as instantaneously catchy or as emotionally captivating, I think, as some of the other cuts she's released so far from this forthcoming album. She's really, really releasing a lot of tracks from this record. This, to me, just sounds like a song that would have worked better as a deep cut that kind of grows on you as you listen to it more and more. So I'm just sort of wondering how much of this forthcoming record is going to be spoiled before we actually hear it. But it should be out soon. It's just around the corner. So this track, again, it's all right. It's a very heavy, dark ballad, and just hoping the rest of the record just kind of pulls through and kind of works together as a whole. Moving on from here, the new Mitski track, Geyser, is actually pretty good. Her music previously has never really stopped me in my tracks. Just felt like a very vague blend of indie and shoegaze and pop music, and just felt very nondescript to me. And while this song over here wasn't really blowing me away because it did feel a little brief, although I could see it working really well in the context of an entire record, this song over here is easily, from an instrumental standpoint, one of her most triumphant tracks. So does it work entirely as a single? I wouldn't necessarily say so, but again, the build, the progression of the track, the instrumentation on the track is really, really immense and actually pretty spectacular in a lot of ways. And her vocals, to me, felt a little bit more tangible as well. So even though this might not have blown me away as a single song, it does actually have my mouth watering a little bit, and it does have me excited for where she's going to be going next with her music, because it does seem like she's maturing and kind of growing into her own a little bit, and finding what is possibly her sound and kind of defining herself, defining what a Mitski song sounds like. Moving on from there, a new Adult Swim single from the one and the only Tim Hecker. The song is titled Rose Light, and it kind of reminds me of the somewhat textured and dissonant and noisy and kind of fractured ambient and drone compositions that he was doing on his Virgins record way back. So who knows, maybe it's a bit of inspiration from that time or a leftover from that time. I'm not really sure. Either way, it's a decent track, sounds fine. So if you really kind of enjoy that era of Tim Hecker's discography, do give this track a listen, because it's certainly in that vein. Moving on from there, which track was this? This was the I think the Goth King track, Womb. This band is kind of a nasty, punky, indie post-punk outfit with a really like sharp, reverby kind of effect on a lot of the instrumentation. Really brash, bratty vocal delivery. Some wild, freewheeling guitars. It's maybe not as animalistic or as original as I would like, but they're certainly a band to watch. Again, Goth King. The song is titled Womb. Goth King. Digging on this track quite a bit. Moving on from there, Christine and the Queens has a new track out, new project on the way. This song is actually a collaboration with Dame Funk, and there's actually a French version of this song as well, I believe. It's a nice little track. It's not quite as dramatic as some of the previous material I've heard from this project. Of course, with Dame Funk being involved, there is a bit of a very light synth funk vibe to it, though I would say it's it's not a nostalgic throwback or anything like that, which we typically associate with Dame's music. The synths are in there heavy, but it sounds very contemporary. It sounds very sensual, and it's a pretty sweet track overall. And next, Brooke Candy with this song over here titled War. Brooke Candy's music I've never really been super crazy about, but I will say that this is like the first track of hers that really started to pull me in and kind of win me over. I kind of like the rough and sort of heavy metal elements that are worked into the song. The beat is absolutely bombastic. I think her vocals are pretty great as well. The one thing that kind of holds me back on the track is that the super edgy sloganeering type politics throughout the song are just super reductive and kind of annoying, but there is something about the track that kind of reminds me of MIA a little bit, but again, like a bit more of a edgy, dark, almost like metal kind of version of that. I'm not exactly sure if this is a sound or a style that she's going to carry through on the rest of this forthcoming project, but I don't know. I certainly like the direction she's going in. You know, could the lyrics be a little bit more interesting? Yes, absolutely. But sonically, vocally, I feel like there are a lot of good elements here. So, and let's move on to the tracks that I felt were the best tracks this week. The songs that really kind of grabbed my attention in a positive way, really kind of blew me away or stuck with me. First, frickin' this posthumous Lil Peep track / music video for Chainz with Clams Casino. This is great. This is fucking good. I mean, I know I've never really been crazy about Lil Peep's music before. I've been heavily critical. And, you know, he dropped another posthumous track not too long ago, I think with like Marshmello, that I thought was okay. But this is like the first song of his that really kind of like stopped me in my tracks and really kind of floored me. And not just because of his super melodic but slurred and ultra catchy hook on this one, you know, having the 4 chains and give 2 to his brother, so on and so forth. But also Clams Casino's production on this thing is incredible. Not only does it kind of feed into his typically very washy and cloudy and psychedelic aesthetic, but some of the layering on this track is just really weird and really experimental. Not only plays to the slightly edgy demeanor of Lil Peep, but also just sounds completely cutting edge for Clams, just in general. So, I mean, if there's like more leftover stuff from these two getting together, I would love to hear it, because this was just an incredible little single. Super dark, incredibly produced, very trippy, very strange. So really digging on that track. Moving on from there, Anderson .Paak, Bubblin. God. This is an incredible track, man. This is an incredible track. Like Anderson .Paak, I think a lot of people have always seen him as like part this, part that, part everything, a bit of an all-arounder, a guy who does it all. But in a lot of ways, this is just kind of strictly a rap song, and a trap banger at that, with a lot of eccentric samples and just kind of wild instrumentation. Anderson .Paak on top of it is super fucking charismatic, and just the music video of this thing is insane. But the thing is that wild attitude also comes across in his lyrics and his delivery as well. There's so much personality on this track, so much of a strong, fun, incredible vibe. But because it's Anderson .Paak, you know he's not dumbing it down. You know there's kind of a funny, tongue-in-cheek, smart, somewhat satirical edge to a lot of what he's saying and doing on here. Just true entertainer. Anderson .Paak, total package. And we'll leave it at that. Loving this track. I think, went backwards. Got to go forwards. Moving on from there. This is the new 9 Inch Nails song over here, God Break Down the Door. Really interesting direction for Trent on this one. Certainly more experimental than a lot of the stuff that was on his last EP that underwhelmed me. To me, the song sort of sounds like a fusion of Suicide and David Bowie. Like, it's super still, it's super repetitive, it's very minimal. Trent's vocals are very tense, and it's an incredibly dark song with like some weird saxophone in there too. I would love to sort of hear like an EP or a project of like him going down like this very dark kind of musical abyss. This stylistically is right up my alley. This is like the kind of thing that I'm very into, and it's really great to kind of hear him embarking on it, because the production is pretty good. But I do like the fact that he knowingly and very caringly kept the sounds like very rudimentary and raw, though he could have easily, like, with all of the, I guess, everything at his disposal, he could have easily gone just overboard with everything that was on this track. And I just can't really say enough nice things about this song. I just really love the direction Trent is going in with this track. Moving on from there, Melody's Echo Chamber. Now, Melody's Echo Chamber previously is not really a musical project that ever really grabbed my attention, like just felt to me super bland generally. But this new song, Desert Horse, and the other track that has been released in promotion of this new forthcoming album are super weirdly produced and very colorful and odd pieces of psychedelic pop. Very creative. And I just love the tune on this one. I love all of the weird extra bits of instrumentation and transitions. Like, it's very, very, I don't know, I just love the finer details of this track. Just very, very, very lovingly detailed. And I don't know if I could say much more about it other than that. Try it. It is a very fun, creative bit of psych pop. The vocals are great too, so do not miss it. This is not your usual psych pop pastiche. It is some very interesting instrumental bits sort of worked throughout this track very nicely. Moving on from there, the new Kero Bonito track, which I missed last week, but now I'm sort of catching up with it. This new song over here, titled what is it? Time Today. Came with a new music video as well, with sort of all these funny scenes and what looks like a mental institution or something. But Kero Bonito kind of going back to their synth pop shit again. Maybe not quite as bouncy or as contemporary as the stuff off of their kind of breakout album, but still definitely more in a direction that I enjoy. Less in that sort of lo-fi indie rock direction of their last EP. Although I would say this song is kind of sticking to that whole lo-fi thing. And I think the balladry is almost the same, though I will say this track feels a little bit more memorable and cohesive. And I feel that same sense of like sadness and longing in KKB's songwriting on this one yet again, which I really loved on their last record, their last album, which I really loved on that album. But I guess it just sort of sounds a little bit different around this time around, doing a bit of a lo-fi bedroom synth pop thing. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Really digging the track. Moving on from there, new Disclosure single, which I'm actually really excited about. Ultimatum is the title of the track, featuring Mali singer I'm going to fuck this up, and I'm going to try my best not to. Fatoumata Diawara. Hope I nailed the landing on that one. Again, I apologize for not knowing that in advance, but her vocals on this track are incredible. The production is great. The groove, that bouncy, sort of futuristic and very bubbly house production that Disclosure brings to the table. All around, just like a really great track. And I love that they're kind of taking it back to basics on this a little bit, because I feel like they really tried to break the bank and go absolutely overboard with so many songs on their last full-length album, which honestly, like when the single came out, I was like, yeah, I mean, their debut is really good. Did they come out with another record? I totally forgot about their last album. I totally forgot about that sophomore record because it's such a mess. And hopefully this next time around, they're just a little bit more consistent. I will say this track does have me really excited. I hope they pull on some more interesting features just like this one. And just take it back more in a direction that feels more like them. I feel like on their last record, a lot of tracks just kind of felt like they were trying to keep up with trends and play into whatever the vibe or the style is of their, sort of A-list guest. I would rather the duo sort of stick to their guns and pick more interesting, obscure, creative features that people aren't hearing other places. And this song does exactly that. Great tune, great feature, great vocals, great production. Really digging it. Moving on from there, Death Grips. Oh my God, this is so much better than freaking Streaky. Black Paint is the new song that they have over there, and a very strange song for Death Grips, because it sort of seems like the band is taking their very abrasive, very industrial, internet-aged sort of neo hip hop sound and taking it into like a psychedelic jammy direction. And it wouldn't be the first time that we like heard Death Grips kind of performing in a way where they felt almost like a little rock influence or sort of like a rock band. I mean, that's kind of what Jenny Death is to a T. But this to me just felt so much like looser. Like, again, there was like an improvisational element to it, like a little more than usual, especially kind of when you get like this jammy keyboard piece that just feels really really strange, like just very, very, I guess, unique for a Death Grip song. But they kind of pull it off. You know, they definitely pull it off. I don't really know what to say outside of that. I mean, it's definitely not as thrilling or as blood pumping as, you know, like an inanimate sensation or something like that. But it is really cool, and it is really intriguing to hear Death Grips doing something different and doing it well, too. You know, it was a little a bit of a letdown to hear Streaky sound as predictable as it did, and it's nice to hear that the band still has more tricks up their sleeve, up my sleeve, up my sleeve, up my sleeve, and hopefully they have more tricks to come. And finally, YBN Cordae, I believe this is the last track. Oh no, we have a few more. YBN Cordae dropped this new song over here, which is essentially a thematic response to J. Cole's 1985 track, you know, to Lil Pump and all of the mumble rappers and so on and so forth. And I really like it. I think it's a really good, smart, reasoned response from a young rapper who has a lot to say about, you know, this whole old head, you know, versus new rapper and new generation kind of dichotomy and struggle that we currently find ourselves in the midst of. I think he says a lot of smart things about the state of music currently. I think he makes a lot of great points. The flow is good. Sure, maybe the song isn't so catchy because it gets bogged down in the message a little bit. But I think his response is a necessary one. And yeah, you know, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Obviously, the instrumental is the instrumental you've already heard and everything. But you know, I think this is a really good performance. I think this is a really good write that he's come together with here. And you know, to me, a song like this is what hip hop is all about. You know, when a rapper has something that you have a problem with, fucking you take it on wax and you put it out there for everybody to hear, and that's how you make your point. That's what the music, that's what the art form is all about. And he did it really well. So, you know, it's not only great to hear that new up-and-coming rappers can still pull that off, still do it, and it's nice to sort of see that a resurgence of that a little bit. And you know, as happy as I was with J. Cole's track originally, I'm happy with this song as a response, because I feel like he didn't necessarily put Cole in his place, but I feel like he sort of illustrated that J. Cole, as well reasoned as he was, because I don't feel like 1985 is purely a diss track. I do feel like it's also an advice track. I feel like YBN was able to illustrate that Cole was kind of speaking from a place of ignorance, at least a little bit, on that track, with just, you know, not trying to understand where exactly sort of this new generation is coming from and how they're expressing themselves. And finally, shout out to Aesop Rock with Klutz, this new song of his, a new music video as well. You know, it's a great track, but doesn't feel too much like Aesop is doing anything other than just kind of like dropping another kind of self-affirming song, kind of updating us as to where his kind of head is artistically at this point in his career. You know, a lot of tracks on here just kind of like self-descriptions of his eccentricities and his mindset and his worldview and that sort of thing. So, you know, you write about what you know about. That's what Aesop Rock does. You know, maybe not quite as like weirdly topical as some of the songs off his last record, but hey, you know, let's see what he has to bring on this new album. And, you know, obviously the flow's still there. Production is totally out there, as to be expected with Aesop. And, you know, the references, the lyricism, the entendres, just everything is fucking deep as fuck. It is subterranean. And it's glad that Aesop Rock is still able to keep it up, keep it captivating, and just keep on killing it. So, all right, that's going to be it for the weekly track roundup. Thank all of you for watching. Remember, again, we have our tour coming up, theneedledrop.com/tour. That link is down there in the description box. come on down, guys. Come on down. If you're at any of these dates, if you're close to any of these places, get those tickets. Be there. I'll see you there. And hopefully you got some good recommendations out of this. Remember, everything that I talked about in this video is down there in the description, like usual. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, forever.